Today is our first ever Education on Air conference. Today's educators are holding 46 Hangouts on Air, leading discussions on a number of topics in education technology. So thanks to all the presenters for giving us time to this and to all of you watching. So all of our presenters do have early access to Hangouts on Air, which is a technology that allows them to broadcast and record webinars. And you can watch any of the sessions today simply by going to the presenters' Google Plus page at the appointed time. You can find a list of all the sessions and links to presenters' Google Plus pages at the conference website at sites.google.com/site/EduOnAir. Once again, it's sites.google.com/site/EduOnAir. I'll be sure to post the conference website address into the comment section below the video. So with that, let me actually introduce Bjorn. So Bjorn has been gracious enough to host many sessions for us today. He is the host of Google Weekly Podcast, which is part of the edlisten.com network. He's also the IT coordinator and integration specialist for Mount St. Joseph Academy in Rutland, Vermont. So if you, at the end, you want to follow his work or contact him, you can be sure to go to edlisten.com. So with that, let me turn the time over to Bjorn. Take it away, Bjorn.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm happy to be doing here. I'm happy to be doing, this is my third session today, and I have 5 total. So yes, I'm running a marathon here in sessions. What I was hoping to do with this session is to actually go through the entire process of setting up a Google domain and then getting it enabled. It's something that can be done within an hour, and with one little caveat, there's an upgrade that takes a couple weeks for them to do, but you can get started right away. And so I wanted to get this going. So we're going to be getting a few more people on. I think I had a couple more people I invited, and with these back-to-back, I'm sure we're going to be coming on. So without further ado, I want to talk about Google Apps for Education. If you're in the Hangout, don't be afraid to mute yourself until you want to, whatever. Okay, moving on. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to bring you to the Google Apps for Education sign-up page. So if you've ever, this is for people who have not set up a Google Apps for Education account yet, and or have set it up and just kind of want to review it. I thought this would be a good recorded way to go through the entire process. And if there's other questions, and maybe there's some tips and tricks I know about that maybe you didn't know about. So right here, I'm at the Google Apps for Education page. And I just usually find this by, searching Google Apps. It can be for the business, but you can go for business or Google Apps for education. Actually, I think I usually search for Google Apps for Education. If you get to this page, which I have on the bottom, it has the other links, so it's for the education page that we actually want to do. And when you get Apply Today, the first thing is, and you sign up, you can do 2 things. At this point, you can actually set up your own domain name. So if you do not have a domain name out there yet, and you just want to get going with Google Apps, I suggest just going through here and entering your domain name. And if it's not one that you have already, it'll ask you if you want to sign up. And maybe on the standard edition that I'm looking at this, and the education is a little bit different. If you already have your own domain name, and that's where I'm going to go start off from right here, you can set up something called a subdomain to start it off, or you can set it up off your main domain. If you have a domain and there's email set up on it already, you can still sign up Google Apps and just not turn on the email portion of it. And I'll show you how that works and what settings you don't have to set up for that one. If you have and you want email to get going with it, go right ahead, and I'm going to go through the process. So I'm right here, and I have several different websites, and what I'm going to do for this session is I'm actually going to set up a subdomain for one of my many websites. Many domain companies allows you to manage these, so you'll have to check with whatever hosting company that you have your domain with. For me, I know I can go into a cPanel and access it securely there. And cPanel is pretty standard. There's a lot of web hosts and companies that use cPanel, so I figured this would be a familiar interface to many. If you use GoDaddy, it's a lot more different, but their support is really, really well, and you can have them help you set up the subdomain, or if you know how to get into there. So once I'm in here, I'm actually going to set up a subdomain. Right here, I'm going to have domains here. And let's do it off the EdListen network. Let's do it off edlisten.com. And I'm going to EduOnAir 2012. Hopefully we're going to be doing something next year with this too, and maybe I don't know if I'll be doing the same session, but it's good to put the date in there. Subdomain creation. So I just created a subdomain. There is nothing in it now, but what it does mean is I have access to it. There's a FTP site I can load things in, or some files I can load into them. It's essentially my domain, and I can edit all types of things within this. Now what I want to do, now that I have my domain name right here, and you can set up one for students and one for teachers, although I don't really recommend that method. I usually recommend doing one primary one and a couple subdomains, and I will hopefully get to that in a little bit while. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to apply. So sign up. I have my domain name. And I figure just going to go through this. Number of users. I'm going to go for 10. And I have to enter an address that is not part of this domain. This is very important, and I ran into this recently with a company or at another school that someone had registered the domain name and they had no idea who the secondary address was. And it's quite a process to get it back, and it's to the point where we just set up a second domain name and dropped it. So this secondary address is very important to document who it has. The phone number I'm going to put in here is my business phone number, which is posted all over the web anyways. United States. I understand that I have to change the DNS. When you first sign up for this, and this is where it'll work, I'm not an education thing, but I'm going to call it an education. When you first sign up, it starts off as a standard user, and then you have to upgrade. So I'm going to be able to go through and sign up, but I won't be able to do the upgrade with just EdListen without proving that I'm in a school. And I'm going to call myself Other for now, and I'm going to call myself a small school. No. No. Well, I guess that could be yes if you're talking about me here. First thing is I want to set up my first email address, and I'm always easy there. And wonderful terms of service. So I have just gone through the process of setting up, I'm going to go Express here. So I've just set up Google Apps for the domain. There's a few other steps you have to do. I'm already into the dashboard. And the next thing it wants to do is verify the domain ownership. Require being next. And the primary way they want you to do this is by an HTML file. And what I want you to do, literally, is to take this HTML file right here, and I'm just going to save that to my desktop. And that's just a simple HTML file. And they want you to upload it straight into the root of EdListen, of the website you just created. So I know that using cPanel, I could FTP in it if you're a school like that, if you have your own host. Like I said, the whole how you manage DNS and how you manage your website varies to the point where I cannot show everything. So I'm hoping that whoever's your webmaster, whoever's managing your web, will understand this enough to be able to go in and make these changes. But for me, I know that I have a file manager in here. So I'm actually just going to click the file manager. And public HTML, and here's my EduOnAir conference right there. And I'm going to upload a file. I'm going to upload the Google file there. Let it upload. I'm hoping this is going to work, or else it's going to be a very short session. It's starting to upload. While we're waiting for this to upload, is there any questions from the stream yet, or from the Hangouts, or anything you'd like me to address throughout this process? Dan, you look like you're thinking.
Yes, I have a question. Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Maybe I didn't got it on the first minute, but I want to know if I can do it with a Google site.
Say that again.
I can do this with a Google site.
You can you can do this with a Google site? What this is actually setting up Google Apps, the full apps. And then what you can do is, if you want the domain name to go straight to a Google site, there's an extra step. But yes, you can. And I've done that with askbj.net. This is my personal, one of my personal sites that I've had since college. This is a Google site. It goes straight here. I've also done it with our school. So our school has msjvermont.org, and again, this is a Google site, and it goes straight to there. If I have time, once everything is set up, I will definitely try and cover that. So starting to upload. So I need to get that one file uploaded. So let me try a different file manager. So legacy file manager. Not saying this is a perfect process. There you go. Now it's uploaded. Once it's uploaded, you notice that it says, please verify by going to this website. And it's my website / the Google HTML file that you just uploaded. So if it works, you can open this up in a new window, and you'll just see Google verification. All this is doing is making sure that you own the domain. And there's alternative methods. So I did it via HTML. If you don't have a website set up on it, you can go to the alternative methods, and you can do it through a DNS record. And I'm not going to show you how to do the DNS record here, because once we do our email setup, we'll go into DNS, and that's the same process. So now that I've verified the domain, continue. it wants me to go through the next step of importing users. And now I am fully verified. I have everything. The next step that I want to go to is actually the email. And then once we have the email enabled, so you can email in and out, then I'll go through how to import users and different ways you can do that. So, so in your email, in the dashboard here, this is where all your settings are. So in the first dashboard, you'll see all your things that you have enabled. Organization and users is where you can add users and organizations to. I want to verify my account now. The phone number I have there is actually a Google Voice phone number, which is kind of cool because then I'll be able to get I won't have to check my phone. I can just go onto Google Voice from my computer. I'm not going to stream that live. Sorry. And hopefully I will get the text with the verification code. Which I did. See? You just sent it to me. Well, it's on 310. As you can see, I've done this before. So I have wrong verifications in there. So I just verified. Back to where I was. So organization and users. This is where you can add your users to this. This is also where you can set up and turn on and off services. Groups. Domain settings. And I'm going to cover each of these a little bit more. So at this point, I want to stop and I want to get the email set up so I can cover these a little bit more in detail throughout the hour. So in email, it has something that says set up your email. So I'm going to hit set up my email. And in here, click next. Next. I'm looking for specific settings. And they change this to me every single time, so. No. Dashboard. Okay, what I'm looking for actually is these MX records. The MX records is a type of DNS record. DNS stands for Domain Name DNS Service. It's what converts like the IP address and the cryptic number to an actual EduOnAir.com account. And the instructions for this I don't want mobile access. They just sent out a thing saying they changed things like 2 days ago. Email. Your MX records. Okay, well, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Google MX. So right here is the MX records. They're the same for all of them, and I don't know why it wasn't coming up in the dashboard, but a simple search did reveal them, and they're in Google there. So these are a priority and a mail server. And what I'm going to do is I have to go back, and somewhere in here it allows you to enter in DNS entries, and one of them specifically is MX records. Right here under mail it works, and I probably could also do it if I went into the advanced DNS zone editor. All kinds of fun stuff in there. Nope, no, I guess I can't. I have to do it through the email one. So with this, I'm going to go back to the MX records for the entry. I'm going to choose the domain name. And right now there is no email record set up. If you have a host that says we're doing email for you, you may see one. What we want to do is we want to, oh, wait, look at this. Set Google MX records. They've changed things on me. Go figure. I'm broadcasting this live and it doesn't want to work. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the MX records. If I can't get through this, then I'll be happy to show you an alternative way or one of the other ones. You have to be able to edit the that specific record. And what you want to do is for each of those records, you want to add in a priority and the email with the trailing email. And apparently my web host has changed things since the last time I was doing this. Trying to prepare for this was a little bit harder because I couldn't necessarily go through the entire process. And I did it not too long ago, so I wasn't expecting it to be much different. Okay, well, let's look at one that I've already have. So once you enter it in and you get the email correctly, it'll look something like this. You'll notice that the priorities up here, the lowest one up here will show at the top. My domain, I have to not put the trailing period in. But if you look at the instructions here, there is a trailing period. And that seems to be quite important in that you have to occasionally do this. Some hosts will require the trailing period, other hosts will not. Stephen, you posted something up there. What was it?
The thing I posted is more information on configuring mail delivery. So it includes MX records. It's an help article, basically.
Okay. So it looks like I have to call my host to find out what they've changed. But let's move on, because that just means the email delivery won't work quite yet until that MX records gets in. But at least you can see what it would look like and what you have to enter in. And this is the part that is very dependent on your host. So once you are So I'm going to go www.google. And what you'll notice that your domain name is actually now at www.google.com/a/your domain name. That's actually your primary address. I went to the dashboard. Once I hit here, it'll bring me to the dashboard where I had that closed. So that /a domain name is a very important thing to remember, and I will hopefully get back to that before the end of the session. Now that I have, well, let's just say I have set up the email, I have verified the account, now I want to bring in users. So I'm going to go to Organization and Users. And this is where you can enter in users. And there are a couple ways of doing this. Actually, before I get to entering in users, sorry, I am not even following my own show notes here. When you set this thing up, right from the scratch, it sets it up as a standard account. That's the account that is very limited. It's the one that doesn't have support. It only has 10 users. And so the very first step, now that I've verified everything and I want to start importing students, I can't import 200 students on an account that only allows 10. So there is a form. It's called Upgrade to Google Apps form that you need to fill out. And this one I did not ever see in the instructions. I always have to go to, again, Google and say Upgrade to Education Edition. And it's usually one of the very first documents on the list. So what this does is if you are in education or if you are a nonprofit, you want to fill out this form. And so I'm a K-12, and you can kind of read up all these little instructions, domain verification, and then there's this upgrade to education form. Notice that it does take within 1 to 2 weeks to actually get upgraded from the standard edition to the education edition. And it's a simple form, nothing, they will not go crazy with that. They're just basically kind of saying your name, the domain name, phone number, your organization, which should be your school, the URL, whether you're a K-12 institution. They do want to know your accrediting body and the mailing address. And that's it. They're not really looking for a lot of information. They just want to say, are you a school? And after 1 to 2 weeks, they will upgrade your account to the education edition. And let me log in. I think I can log into one of my other accounts that is an education edition. It's a test education edition. And I'll show you one of the little tiny things that you need to see. And what you'll see is right up here, it'll actually say Google Apps for Education, specifically education. On the one I just signed up, notice how it just says Google Apps. So that's your indication of whether you're in the education edition or the standard edition. When you're in the education edition, you can have, I don't know if there's a max for the amount of users in there, but I'm actually, Stephen, what's the max for the education, or is it unlimited?
There is no limit, but if you were to go back to your control panel for the education edition, can you go back to your control panel?
Yep.
You'll see on the bottom it says request more users.
Yep.
Yep. So if you ever you need more users, just request more users. But there's no limit to the education edition how many users you can have.
Great. So in the education edition, you can always request more and get those approved. So back to my starting up account here. So I have upgraded, I've done all the verification. I have set up the MX records for my email. I've gone through the form to get it upgraded, and I've waited 1 to 2 weeks to get it upgraded to the Education Edition. And now I have, let's say now I'm ready to import users. And that's under Organization and Users. And what you want to do here is you can either create a user individually, which for a school, that's probably not the ideal method. First name, last name, email address, set the password. There's really not too much you can do here. You also have the ability to bulk upload users. And you'll notice that it's just a simple CSV file, comma-separated file with email address, first name, last name, and the password you want to use. During the upload, it says, do you want to update existing accounts? So if, like, say, you're resetting passwords on a group of people, you can re-upload their usernames and reset their passwords. This is also where you can say, require password change. And then you just simply upload the users. I'm going to say it takes, let's say 10 seconds per user. So if you have 100 users, expect to wait just a little while for all of them to populate and import. It's not 100% instantaneous, but it is fairly quick. And for me, I sometimes rush the process, and I'm like, okay, where's all my users? So I'm keep clicking refresh. But you can upload the users through a CSV file, create them individually. There are tools for synchronizing this with Active Directory. So if you're an AD school or if you're an LDAP school, you can synchronize with Active Directory. And there are some limitations with that. The main limitations with the built-in version is that it does not carry over the passwords. It'll carry over users. It will not carry over the passwords. Dan, I'll get to taking away users. Actually, I don't know if that works that way. I know you can bulk click. But you can synchronize this with Active Directory. It doesn't carry over the passwords. But there are some ways that people have gotten it to work with the passwords. And the way I have it set up in my school, I'm actually trying to eliminate Active Directory altogether and just go with Google Apps. So I'm really not trying to rely on Active Directory at all. But I also have a much smaller school than what most people have, so I can get away with that. The first way, so I sent out a request on a couple listservs and on Google Plus to see what people had suggested. The first thing that came out was this SHA1 hex FLTR. And there's actually a fair amount of information about this. And this will be a free way to actually synchronize with Active Directory and carry over your passwords. I have not done this myself. There is some security concerns around this, though. And it's basically, some people say that it puts the passwords into a different field that Google can read. In some cases, if you don't set it up correctly, that field can be read by anybody in the domain. And there's been other things that I quickly read where somebody put out some instructions that say, well, if you set it up this way, it does lock it from the rest of the crowd. So it's not exactly a simple point-and-click method, but it does work for synchronizing the passwords also with Google Apps and this. The other way that someone suggested was a company called SSO Easy for a single sign-on. And this was a little bit, I didn't look into this too much, but I guess it is a paid solution. It's almost a third-party solution, so you'd actually log into SSO Easy instead of Google Apps, where if you logged into using this tool or using the Active Directory sync, you would log in the normal way. So that's SSO Easy is another option, commercial option for signing up. Close that. Covered that. It's giving me a try. Now, once you're in, and I'm actually going to switch over to that other domain that I have pre-set up, only because I have some users in here. And I thought I'd go through each of the questions. Before I go on and kind of go through each of these menus, is there any questions out there in the Hangout, or is there any questions out there in the stream? Stephen, anything out in the stream?
Nope, all the questions are actually at me. So I've been answering the questions on the stream because they're directed at me.
Oh, okay. I gotta go see what they're asking about then. But in the chat window, Dan did ask about removing people. And when you're in your organization and everybody's in. So let me start off with, I'll go start off with the dashboard. Each of these different sections right here are the core suite. You can add more services, you can add third-party services, and you can add more core services. One of the core services that I usually add is Google Groups for Business. And you can do that by clicking Add More Services. You'll see any of the core Google services like Google Groups for Business you can add from here, or see more from our service partners. And this is a third-party marketplace which has hundreds of different applications that you can put in there, some free, some paid. In my test domain here, you'll notice that I've actually added a couple, actually quite a few. It's one of my test ones, so I have different ones that I was playing with. Avaria Designs is a very popular one. Tripper Tools is a very popular one. And each one of these has its own settings. So if I want to look at the settings, let's say for sites, it'll actually bring over to settings over here. You'll notice that I can set things up per organization. Some of these you can set up per org, some of them you can't. More and more, it's actually coming that you can. I can choose who can create sites and sites visibility. And this is where the terms of service comes into play and why why Google could say the school is the administrating party, is because each of the services that have public information, you have the option to force that information to be internal only. So by default, your calendars can't be shared outside the domain, your sites can't be shared outside the domain, your documents can't be shared outside the domain. And those are all things that the administrator has to turn on. In many cases, you can turn it on per organization. In some other cases, it's not yet there to be able to do that. I'm going to click on General, Share Options, Templates, Web Address Mapping, and I'm going to mess up your name. So Amparo, I think this is where you're looking for. The web address mapping, where if you have a Google site and you want it to go to a specific site, you click here and it'd say, here's the Google site that you want to put in. What is your email address? It has to be based off of your email address from your domain. So this could easily be www if it's a primary domain and you want it to point to here. And what that will do is then it'll give you an entry that you want to put it into your DNS. Leave. Okay, so I would encourage you, once you jump on, is to go through each one of these settings individually and see what you can do. I'm going to get to organizations very quickly, and then it looks like I'm going to have to cut out pretty soon because I have another session right after this. Organizations are the way that Google organizes users and turns on and off services. So if you look right here, I have it set up where my teachers have an organization, and each of my students have an organization. And inside that, normally I have it based off a graduation year. And for each of those, I can turn on and off services. And one last way for importing users that I did not get to, so you have the is a template that I created that works off of a command line way. So in here, get to my website for the classroom. Bulk add users and move. I created this helping a client recently, and this is a really cool template. It kind of looks crazy, but what you would do is you'd use this template, and it goes through, it has the instructions, and then it basically sets up the commands for each that you'd copy and paste into either a batch file or into a command line. And you enter in all the users here on this page. First name, last name, username, password, whether you want it to be what organization you want it to go under and what group you want it to go under. And then if you go through these steps, 1 through 6, copy and pasting, it will automatically import all the users. It will automatically create groups for you. And it will automatically create the organizations for you. And it will put everybody into the proper organization. Right now, the trick is without that method, if you don't synchronize with Active Directory, and if you just trying to upload users, what a lot of people do right now is they make sure there's nobody in the primary, in the root here. Everybody's in a sub-org of some sort. And then when they upload the users, they upload one org at a time. So they'll upload one grade, so the incoming grade they'll upload, and then they'll automatically wait for those to go in and move them to the proper org, then upload the second grade and move them to the proper org, which for the client that I was working with, it was a supervisory union that had 4 schools, K-12, many of them mimicking. So it was a really big process to be uploading each one of those grades individually to start off with, which is why I found the command line way of doing it and was able to move them all pretty easily. Not saying it's working without issues, but it certainly worked. Okay, I'm kind of quickly going to take any questions, and I'm going to read some of the comments here. So are there any other questions?
Bjorn, so we had a question on the thread or the comments about how do you delete users in bulk. So how are you going about deleting users in bulk?
For me, I put everybody into one org. So let's say the students is the outgoing grade. I just literally click the little checkbox on the top, and I will either delete the users or more often just delete the users right from there. The same tool that I use for this bulk upload, which is GAM, which is this Google Apps Manager, does have a command line way of you doing it. But for me, I usually just go in and just click the select all, and because I have everything organized per org, it wipes them out at a grade level. So as long as you put orgs for every based on graduating year, it comes out a lot more easier.
Cool.
So if you don't see the upload button in your Google Docs, that's usually because you're inside one of the orgs. The only place you have the upload option is if you're in the main, the root domain. You can tell I've been doing this a while.
Yeah, so Bjorn, I know that you need to jump off because you do have another session. Just wanted to once again thank you so much for taking this time to present. Once again, I do want to thank all the participants in Hangout as well for providing feedback and asking questions, as well as everybody listening live. Thank you so much. Please do continue on the conversations after we end this time, so feel free to continue asking questions on the comments thread. Both Bjorn and I will, of course, take a look at them. But this Hangout will be posted to YouTube, so you can feel free to watch it again or share with all of your colleagues. So once again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, and don't hesitate to contact me at edlisten.com. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.